Alrighty, so here's the situation. We are getting rid of these two left side tanks. There's no fish in there at the moment. Yep, those two. There's no fish in there at the moment because they're really small, and we're going to be upgrading into this 20-litre tank here. It's exactly the same as that smaller square tank. It's just the size up. So let's unbox this. I got this off a seller from Facebook Marketplace who runs a small fish shop out in Logan. So I know these tanks are good. It's a reliable seller, and I really enjoy the rimless look of these tanks, and I find the cubes to be really satisfying. So obviously the two tanks I had on the left were both 10 litres. They're way too small for any fish, hence why we are sizing up today. Look at that. That is so clean. I was so impressed with just the quality of this product. And again, this is a budget build. This was actually a really cheap tank. So materials, we've got my aquascaping tools, we've got a filter there just to clear up the water later, we've got some gravel, we've got these weights here. These are really cool. These are to weigh down my stem plants so we don't have to worry about actually planting them into the soil later. That's the gravel. Now, catching all the shrimp. I did have shrimp in these tanks. I had a lot of shrimp, so I had to catch them all and all the babies and everything, and this was not fun. This took me forever, so enjoy this time lapse of me catching some shrimp. Alright, so let's get down to business. We've caught all the shrimp. I'm going to be reusing the substrate from the two smaller tanks for a couple different reasons. Yeah, it was riddled with plant roots, which is fine. That's actually not a bad thing. Budget was the main reason. I didn't want to have to buy new substrate. It's just expensive and I'm a student. So by reusing the substrate, we're saving money, and also we're just kickstarting the nitrogen cycle as a whole, because all of that beneficial bacteria and all of that good gunky stuff is still living in the substrate. So do not rinse your substrate if you're reusing it. That was my dog Peaches. Don't rinse it. We want to keep all the stuff that's in there. And I'm going to be capping it with the gravel. I did buy this gravel new. I washed it off screen, which is why it was a bit drippy. So, capping it, you're just going to be laying it in a level on top of your substrate. This is just going to lock in all that nutrients. And also, if you are planting plants into the soil, it's going to help keep them in place. So we're just going to be putting that on top, and I'll show you in a second. We want it to be more shallow at the front and higher at the back, and this is so when you're planting your stem plants into the ground, it has more of an area to lock into, if that makes sense. And by keeping it shallow at the front, you can sort of keep that space nice and open. Yeah, so you can see here it's higher at the back, giving it more depth to plant plants into, but at the front, keeping it shallow, it still has like a really clean finish when you're looking at it. This is the most fun part, the hardscape. So again, I reused the big chunk of driftwood from another tank. When I did buy this, it was about $45, which is a little bit pricey, but I bought it like 6 months ago, so it's basically free, girl math. So it's already waterlogged. If you have just bought your driftwood new, you can boil it in a pot to waterlog it, which basically means when you fill your tank up, the wood isn't going to float. It's going to stay in the position where you placed it. Again, that driftwood I already had. It's got some Java moss growing on it, which is kind of cool. We've got dragonstone, which you'll see in a second. That was just an Anubis on the driftwood that you just saw. We've got dragonstone. I bought this a while ago, being reused. Dragonstone's really great for shrimp. It's full of little holes that they love to hide in. All right, hardscape is in. We're back to where the tank is going to be staying permanently, which is when we're going to start planting. So the piece of resistance is this big Java fern. I have had this for yonks and yonks, and it's not like thriving because I keep moving what tank it's in, so the roots are getting a bit traumatized, but that is going to be front and center. I'm just using my aquarium tweezers to just shove that into the background, right into that highest, thickest area of substrate. make sure you keep spraying your plants down because they're going to dry out, especially if you're taking a little while to decide where you want your plants to be. Just keep spraying them to keep them moist. I have some decorative rocks here just to weigh down the plant so it doesn't float in case it's not locked in properly. Next thing we're going to be putting in is some Anubis. I got 2 little stems here, and obviously you saw before there was that big stem at the back that was attached to the driftwood already. So I bought this Anubis this morning, well, the morning that this video was filmed, and it is really cheap. It was $20 for the 2 stems, which is quite good value. So overall we've only spent $75, no, I'm lying to you, $95 so far on this build, which is pretty budget friendly. We've got some more decorative rocks here. I just like the look of these. It just adds a little bit more texture and interest to the foreground of the tank. These were from Bunnings. They're not actually aquarium rocks, they're just regular decorative pebbles, and I just rinse them in the little bucket just to get dust off of them. And there, that is the fully planted out tank. It took me like 10 minutes. It was really easy to do. This is a really easy build to recreate. Now, stem plants, I've wrapped them with the weight to weigh them down. I've just trimmed a bunch off here from my other tank, and then you just plop it in wherever you want it to go and they will stay there with the weight. Let's fill the tank up.
You don't need no man until you need the water lifted.
Okay, so the water is all full. I'm going to be using this Aqua One internal filter just to clear all that mist out of the water. This filter is way too big and way too powerful for a tank this small, so I'm just going to be leaving it in for about 24-48 hours just to clear the water, and then I will be swapping it over with a different filter. Look at this little snail. He came in on a plant. He hitchhiked. So this is the tank 24 hours later. It is crystal clear. It's looking so beautiful. So I can take that internal filter out now, and I'm going to be using it with what you can see on the right here, which is the Clearview 100 filter. It's the same filter I use in my other tank, and I love these. They have a much more gentle flow, which is good because I want to be putting a betta fish in this tank. Obviously, you know this from the title of the video. It's a much more gentle flow. I really enjoy these filters. So let's install that now. So I obviously have to take the old internal filter out. Like I said, it's just way too big and powerful for something this small. Yeah, it does release a bit of cloudy juice, if you will. I'm not worried. That's going to clear up really quickly when we get the actual filter in, which is here. So this is the Clearview 100. I use it in my other tank on the right there. It hangs on the outside of your tank, and it has 2 cartridges here. We can rinse these every couple of weeks when we do water changes, and that's just going to filter out all the nasties. So we also have 2 little, this is like the intake stem, if you will. This is what sits inside the tank and intakes the water. That just pops on, literally pops, it all just fell out. It just pops onto the end there. That is the only installation you have to do in like building it, I guess. So yeah, just gonna pop that on the back. I actually wanted it to be behind the tank against the wall, but there wasn't gonna be enough space, so I had to go for the side. But it's okay because the pothos and the lucky bamboo kind of disguises it a bit anyway. So it just hangs on the outside with that intake straw resting inside the actual water itself. So before you turn your filter on, make sure that you're filling this back chamber up with water, otherwise you run the risk of burning out the motor. And I forgot to mention, I do have a heater in this tank. I just hide my heaters because I think they look ugly, so that's why you can't see it. So the filter is all turned on. I filled it up with water and plugged it in. This little twister on the side can adjust the rate of flow. So you just twist that, change the flow to whichever suits you best, and it's got this little lid, and everything is all set to go. We'll check back in about an hour when the water's all clear, and yeah. So this is the completed fish tank. I am really happy with how it turned out. It was a lot of fun to do. For terrestrial plants, we've got spider plant, lucky bamboo, and variegated pothos. And obviously inside the tank, we've got our Java fern, our Anubis, and some limnophilia on the side there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this educational or entertaining, and I will see you soon.